So now the question becomes, when do we rebalance? There are two approaches. One is based on time, one is based on deviation. So we have time rebalancing and threshold rebalancing in a way. Time rebalancing means that you rebalance your portfolio at specific time intervals. Could be every day, could be every week, could be every month, every year, every hour, every 2 hours, every 5 hours, every 4 weeks, whatever you want. Okay? Now, that's one approach. You can do it your way. So I know people who do it every hour. I know people who do it every day. I know people who do it every year, right? So it's going to depend on a bunch of things. Then you have threshold rebalancing. Threshold rebalancing basically says that you're not going to rebalance because what time it is. You're going to rebalance if the assets in your portfolio have deviated above a certain threshold that warrants for you to rebalance them. You know, if you come a year later and they're still at 20% like we had, or 20.1, is it really worth it? They haven't really deviated. And if in one day, you know, your portfolio went from 20 in each to 25 in one and 15 in the other, then even if it's one day, you should rebalance because they deviated a lot. So, time rebalancing is the most popular of the two. Now, when I mean the most, can I write here? When I mean the most popular, doesn't mean that it's the best. I mean, most people do time rebalancing. Why? Because it's easy. They decide on a time and they do it. Okay? And then, you know, as an investor, you're obviously not going to rebalance every hour or every day. You might rebalance every month. You might come to your portfolio every month and say, okay, well, what is it looking like? Oh, there's big deviations. Let me rebalance now. And that's something that, you know, makes sense. You know, look at it every month. Every year for me is a bit long. But again, if you're a long-term investor and you have lots of things going on, well, at least you're doing it once a year. It's great, you know, because it'll still be way better than not rebalancing. So it's good. Even if you do it every 2 years, it's better than not rebalancing. And, you know, people don't just rebalance throughout their cryptos. People actually rebalance throughout their life. You know, I rebalance in my life. So I would have a percentage that's in cryptocurrencies and a percentage in other assets, a percentage in real estate, a percentage just in cash in case something happens. And then as things change, I might say, okay, well, now I want to add more in here. Or, you know, if, you know, things go crazy up, like when cryptocurrencies flew up, well, what happened? I sold some of those cryptos to put in other assets in my life, right? And so it's very helpful, okay? Because then you take out of things that went up and put it in things that haven't, because it's very hard to know when things go up and when things go down. So if you put yourself in a position that you don't really care, because either way you're gaining or building a bit, you're good. You know, I don't care when the market drops. It's just opportunities to make more money. And as it moves, you know, you're doing transactions and it helps, right? So that's where the rebalancing theory comes from. Now, threshold rebalancing is the one that I like doing. Okay, it's less popular for a reason. So let's have an example to see why I like threshold rebalancing. And again, if you didn't understand threshold rebalancing, I'll just put threshold rebalancing. I don't want to write it. Threshold rebalancing is basically going to be you saying, okay, well, if my asset allocation was supposed to be, and let's give an example here. Let's say I was supposed to have 50% in Bitcoin, and I don't know, 30% in Neo, and let's say, I don't know, just for the purpose of this example, let's say I want 19% in IOTA and 1% in VeChain. Obviously it wouldn't look like something like this, but let's give that example for me to explain what I want to say. So when people are talking about threshold rebalancing, they're saying, well, you know what? I want to rebalance only if there's a deviation in one of these by 2%. So if I come in and Bitcoin is at 52%, 52, well, actually, if it's below 48% or above 52%, I want to rebalance my portfolio. So my threshold is 2%. If it goes above 52%, I need to sell some of it to buy the others. If it goes below, I need to buy more of it, so I need to sell others to buy that one. And that's how they do threshold allocation. Now, I don't do it this way because this way doesn't work. Because if you put a static number here, then what happens with your VChain? You need VChain to go, well, it can't go to -1. You need it to go above 3% for you to rebalance. That doesn't make sense, because for VChain to go from 1% of your portfolio to 3% of your portfolio, that means your other equities would have to have dropped by 2/3 for that to happen, right? Which is too big. It's never going to happen. Or VChain would have had to make 300% returns, tripled its value, and your other coins not moved at all for this to happen. So it doesn't work. So the actual threshold, the way you do threshold, is by putting a percentage compared to your actual asset allocation. Okay, and this is how I do it, and this is the only way I actually do it. So I would say, and the number I use is about 10%. So I would say, look, if my asset allocation changes by 10%, I'm gonna make a change. What does that mean? That means if my asset allocation was 50%, then if it goes to 45%, so 10% of 50% is 5%, right? So I would use a plus or minus 5% around Bitcoin. So between 45% and 50%, 55%. 55%. Then I would rebalance. For NEO, well, 10% of 30%, well, it would be between 27% and 33%. For IOTA, well, 10% of 19 would be 1.9. So that would be 17.9% and 20.9%. Anywhere below that or above that, I need to rebalance. And VChain, it's only 1%. So if it goes up to 1.1, so 10% of 1% gives me 0.1% or 0.9%, then I rebalance. And that makes more sense because it takes into account the actual allocation that you have in these coins, and not just one for all of them. Because a 2% change in Bitcoin value compared to the others is going to happen way quicker because you have 50% of your portfolio is in that than in something else that is only 1% of your portfolio. Okay, so that's how I do it. Now, so in our portfolio, which we had 20% of each, well, 10% of 20% would be a 2% move. So if it would have went up to 22% or down to 18%, then I would have rebalanced. So I wouldn't have rebalanced today based on that. It was too small of movements. Now, is this the right number for you? Not necessarily. Okay, it depends on you. So what is the right number for you? It depends how often you want to do it. Do I want to do it very often? Because if I put 5%, well, 5% in our situation, 5% of asset allocations that are 20%, it would have meant that if a coin went to 19%, up to 21%, then I would have had to rebalance, which would happen way more often, a few times a week. Well, do you want to spend that or not? And, it's not beneficial to do it the most often, because what happens when, coins keep deviating for a long time? Well, if you keep rebalancing, well, you would have made more money by waiting, letting them deviate way more, and then rebalancing as they have already deviated a lot. Because then one of them would have moved up a lot and the other moved down a lot, and then you would sell that one to get that one. But if as soon as they start deviating, you sell that one and buy that one, and you keep doing that, you actually might not make as much. So you don't have to put it at 10%. You could have it at 20%. You could have it even more, right? And you could have it at 30%, whatever you want. And in that sense, you're choosing something that works best for you and your timeline and how much more time you have to allocate to this, right? So if you're doing long term and you want to have it for 4 years, 5 years, and you have your other things going on, well, you might say, okay, well, you know what? I want to wait until there's a big enough deviation of 30%, so that something goes up from 20% to either 26 or down to I guess 14%, and then I would rebalance because that's big enough, or you might even have it higher. So it depends on you. Okay. Now, why do I prefer this over time rebalancing? Well, most people do time rebalancing because time rebalancing doesn't make sense. Okay? I'll tell you why. Because when you're doing time rebalancing, imagine this. Let's say you have, and let's erase this situation. Let's put our situation where we have Bitcoin and we had IOTA and we had VeChain and we had what else? Binance Coin and Zilliqa. Okay, and 20% in each. Now imagine you are doing monthly rebalancing. Okay, every month you rebalance. Now let's draw here. Here we're going to have the time in months. And here we're going to have, let's say, the asset allocation. Okay. Of the asset allocation of, let's say, VeChain. Okay, of VeChain. Now let's say the asset allocation of VeChain, which you're starting off at 20%. This is in let's say this is actually let's say you do rebalancing every let's put it at every month, but here let's have a weekly time scale. Okay, so week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and this can continue. So the asset allocation in VeChain when you started was at 20. Now it actually started going up after 1 week, went up after 2 weeks, and it came all the way here to 25%. So VeChain was worth 25% of your portfolio instead of being only worth 20% of your portfolio. But it's week 2. You're only rebalancing on week 4 and on week 8. So every month, right? Now, things change and it drops back down in value. And then when you come in on week 4, you see that it's at 20%. You don't need to rebalance. Then it goes maybe down to 15% in allocation. So it's worth way less compared to the other ones. So you should rebalance by selling other stuff and buying more of it. Then it goes back up to 20% at week 8, which is the time that you wanted to rebalance. So are you going to rebalance? No, because it's still at 20%, right? So you're not rebalancing. So even though there was opportunities to rebalance, you didn't rebalance because the specific time that you came at to rebalance was a time where there was no deviation. Okay, so you wanted to rebalance on the 4th, after 1 month and after 2 months, and when you logged into when you put the Excel sheet on, everything was around 20%. And I'm looking at VeChain, but we could have that same thing for each of them, and everything looked like it was correctly balanced. So you didn't do anything, and you missed those opportunities to make money, right? Because if you were doing threshold rebalancing, then when this deviated here, and let's say you were at, let's say 10 or 20%, or let's say 10%, at 22, you would have rebalanced here. And then if it went up more after rebalancing, if it continued changing and continued going up compared to your portfolio and did another 2% or 10% of where it was, so now you rebalance, you have 20, but then it moved again, you might have rebalanced again. And so you've sold at good times when it was worth more than the others and put in your money in other coins that were at a lower price. And then as things change with the portfolio, that means probably either the others went up and that's why VeChain is now worth less than the others. Well, you would have made more money because the others went up and you have more of them. Or it's VeChain that went down and you would have lost less money because you have less VeChain because you sold some of them. So in either situation, you've saved either by making more or losing less. And then there's another deviation here. So you buy more VeChain and you buy more VeChain and here, and you sell some of the other. And here, as the portfolio gets back or your things change again, you would have again made more money or saved more money by doing the rebalancing. So yeah, we know that rebalancing works, but the way you do it also has an impact. Okay. So I'm not saying don't do time rebalancing. What I'm saying is do any type of rebalancing is better than no rebalancing. Doing time rebalancing is great. Okay, works and makes money. It'll make you money. It's good for you. Okay, it's good for your portfolio. It'll help your portfolio out. Now, now the thing is, if you can spend the extra hours to keep an eye on the markets, to log into that Excel sheet that I gave you, put in the new number, see if we deviated by much, then you're gonna capitalize on those movements and make more rebalancings when they actually count and not just when you actually came to sit on the computer. It requires more time, but it is more beneficial. So if you do have the time, I suggest doing that approach. And again, if you come in and VeChain really went up in value and went to 16, and then Zilliqa dropped to 0.28, so then your portfolio is unbalanced and you come here and like, oh damn, I have too much VeChain and not enough Zilliqa. Let me sell these and let's rebalance my portfolio, and that'll help. And this is how you do, time rebalancing. This is how you do threshold rebalancing, and this is how you would use our Excel sheet to help you do it in a way smoother fashion.